Part of the trailer for this spooky book. I told you Elizabeth Nixon's book last week would keep you up at night. This one will as well. It's a page-turner, done it in a day, and I don't read an awful lot of fiction. So, Glenn, that is a credit to you. Glenn Beck joining us again from his studio in Dallas. You describe in the book how it's a fictionalized description of what life would be like under Agenda 21. And it keeps saying... Oh, go ahead.
All we did, so people understand, is if you don't want to know about Agenda 21, if you're like, I'm not interested in that, you read the first part and you leave out the epilogue, because the epilogue is why we built the story this way and where you can find all of these facts on the UN website itself. But this is just the storyline is 1984. Brad Thor, a novelist, said that it's the 1984 of this generation. It's what happens if they get their way. What does life look like?
Producer Ivana read the book on the weekend, and she said her paranoia level went from an 8 to 11. And she also said it was like reading the Hunger Games, but with the knowledge that the UN and the radical environmentalists actually exist. So if people are wondering, do they want to read this book? Yes, you do. It'll be an enjoyable book and a scary book at the same time. But one of the things that the characters keep talking about is how it was small things. It was small things that led to this life where people live in living compounds, they have no freedom, the central authority dictates everything. Where are we having those small things? Because I think of the plastic bag ban. You can't have plastic bags. They've got that in San Francisco. They had it in Toronto. It keeps popping up everywhere. In my city, you can't cut down a tree without city permission. You can't cut off that acre from your farm for your kids to build a house. And I raise these issues and people say, well, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? It's for the planet. What's the big deal? It's for this. Don't worry about it. And that, to me, those are the small things.
That is exactly, I mean, the progressive movement, the Fabian socialist movement in England back around the turn of the century, they're very, very bright. They agreed with the communists, but they thought the West would never go into revolution, and they didn't think revolution was a good thing. But they agreed with the principles. They agreed with redistribution of wealth, no property, that capitalism was bad, et cetera, et cetera. And here in the United States, the Fabian socialists, I think, were made to look like rookies. The Woodrow Wilson administration was the one that really took the progressive movement and really institutionalized it in our educational system, in our court system. And the idea was, we don't want revolution. We want the same goal, but no revolution. So we'll make progress. We'll progress bit by bit, and no one will ask any questions. We will just spoon feed it until before you know it, you're something entirely different. I mean, people say, I love progress, and I love the progressive movement. What are you progressing to? Has anybody ever defined that? What are you progressing to?
As far as I can tell, the yardsticks move all the time. There's never a touchdown at the end. It's just a never-ending series of plays to move the ball down the field. I know you don't know football, but ask Stu what that's all about. He'll explain it. So are you shocked then that the sustainable development movement really got its start from socialists? I mean, Vancouver in 1976, as all of this was getting going, they hold a conference on sustainable use of land, and they declare that private property was not a good thing and needed to be stopped. In the 80s with Brundtland, the Norwegian political leader, she was a socialist. It's always socialists coming up with these things, and then the UN adopts them and moves them forward, and you are backwards if you're not on board. You're square, Daddy-o.
It is a new world order, and while this is fiction, what makes this book, I think, so scary is your producer is right. It is like reading Hunger Games, but it's not. Because I read Hunger Games, and Hunger Games, you don't really know what happened, and you know nobody's putting a game together. They are designing this world, the world in Agenda 21. It is verifiable, and not through some conspiracy websites, but through the documents from the UN. And you can trace it in your own community. And I can guarantee you it's affected your local school, the ones your kids are in. And what's frightening about this book is, and that's why you put the epilogue, put it at the end, because you don't want to know all the stuff that happens in the end on why we built this story. You get all the way through this book, and it's pretty terrifying. But what makes it really, really terrifying is it's real. It's
How
real.
do we stop
This is
it?
the way the world looks.
Without giving away the epilogue, without giving away the end, how do we fight back? How do we stop? And can we?
This is the good news on it. They're local. And so most people, I can speak for the United States, I don't know Canada, but most people in the United States that are enacting this on small local levels, they don't know. They have no idea. I mean, we're making a big impact now in San Francisco. One of the main people that's leading the fight here in the United States is a liberal. She's a liberal Democrat. She didn't agree with me on anything. And we're like best buds now because she knows this is the end of sovereignty. And so when you go to the local people, it's not like you're fighting, the big national government. You're fighting the person down the street that you know. And most times, if you don't make your argument based on the first part of the book, but you make your argument based on the epilogue where all of the facts are there, and you can vet them yourself, when you make it based on facts, most likely that person that's on your town council, the person that you're working with, and that that may have put that bike path in because sustainable development's good, you can take them through the facts and say, no, Bill, it's not, and here's why. And a lot of times they're turning around. We're having full cities, small cities, but full cities in America turn and rip everything from Agenda 21 out of their cities.
All right, Glenn.
That's what has to happen.
Glenn, thanks for joining us today, and best of luck with the book. We want to make sure that people know how to get it. So we will put all the information you need at liliespad.ca. Make sure that is under your Christmas tree, liliespad.ca, to find information on the book. And email me your thoughts, byline@sunmedia.ca. More to come.